And I know that toe is an influence, as I brought up earlier, about alternative tunings and open tunings. What is kind of currently where you're at with this guitar? Where are we at tuning-wise with this one?
Oh, it's funny you mentioned that. 2 Moons by Toe. Yeah. So this is a toe tuning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And is that kind of like your home base, or do you have a lot of tunings you go to throughout a set or a song? I mean, obviously not song, but different songs, different tunings.
So I used to have way more tunings, but then I kind of got annoyed with that playing live.
Yeah.
I don't want to roll up with like 12 guitars, just like flexing on everyone like, hey, I've got a guitar for every tuning. No, I don't want to do that. That's ridiculous. So I do tune like in between sets. I have these 3 guitars currently. And all my tunings, like if I do vary it, it'll be just like lowering a string by a half step or like maybe like 2 steps or something. And yeah, currently I work. Do you want me to like list my tunings?
Can you, for the uninitiated that don't know the song by Toe, what can you break down exactly what the tuning is right here with your capo?
Yeah, of course. Well, I'll take the capo off so you can hear what pitch. Actually, I'm gonna really quick tune. So
just to make sure.
Yeah, just because I don't want to have it sound all wonky.
And while you're doing that, I'll try to confuse you. The question is, do you enjoy having alternative tunings? Because I know that like sometimes people can say that it opens up doors, but it also kind of colors before you even start creating it. It already has like almost like an accent, you could say, or color limited range because of what chord is already being strummed when all 6 are hit open.
I actually enjoy having that color be there. So I used to play in standard, like when I first picked up guitar. I did like chords and I played in like church and stuff like that. And I found that everything I played kind of just sounded like other stuff that was already out there. And it was hard for me to break out of the whole shape thing.
Yeah.
So I found bands like Toe and American Football when I was in college, and I was like, oh, like these bands sound really cool. I wonder like how they get that distinct sound, and I discovered that they actually play in different tunings. So I started experimenting with my own tunings and like copying some of theirs and writing my own material, and I found that like it kind of felt more like my voice and like more what I wanted to hear. So the way I write is actually I don't use theory or anything. Like I have a piano theory background, but for me it always kept me in a box. And I think it's important to know what you're doing, and it's important to like have the ear for it. Like ear training is really important. I went through a lot of that. But what I do is I actually sing most of my melodies, and then I just find the main melodic line I want, and then I hear the harmonies like while I'm playing it, and then I like try to figure out how to play that. So for me, whenever I write something, I always write something I can't play yet, and then I teach myself by just repetition for like 5-6 hours.
Is that where your piano background obviously gets influenced into your guitar playing by having like, obviously you're using your hands, but also your right hand is very like melodic driven, whereas the left hand almost is accompanying that, whereas, you know, I guess typical guitar playing wouldn't necessarily be like that, but your right hand is very driving the force of the song, and the left hand's almost just trying to keep up.
Yeah, I usually use, so I view my lower strings kind of like my left hand on a piano.
Okay.
The top strings are my right hand, but you're allowed to like cross over, just like in piano. You're allowed to like go on each other's territory. And I started playing this way because when I first started playing guitar, I didn't have a band. I just kind of played music alone in my room, but I always wanted to sound fuller than just like a single, you know, lead line or something. So I started finding ways with open tunings and tapping and like, you know, finger style to play implied bass lines while I'm playing the main melodic line. So that way it's not just like, you know, a simple one note monophonic line. Like it's polyphonic. A lot of the music I really love is polyphonic, like classical music and stuff. There's like Baroque music is extremely polyphonic. There's like 6 voices going on at the same time. It's insane. So that's always something I aspired to. And it's kind of fun, just like, you know, every time you teach yourself something new, like a new riff or something, it feels like you get better at guitar because you all of a sudden have this new skill. Like sometimes I do things that like I think are impossible just out of necessity, because it's like I want to get this note up here. How can I do that? Oh, I have to do like a crazy jump or something with one hand, or I have to like hold this note while I go up here. And it's like I wouldn't do that normally if I was comfortable with it, but it's like out of necessity. I try to find new ways to play certain things.
When you mentioned that you learned guitar and you were kind of almost accompanying yourself, now you're in a band format and you have to think about bass and drums. Is that restricting in terms of your creativity and how things have to work within a musical relationship of 3 instruments, or is it almost invigorating being able to like collaborate with musicians that you have in your band?
I love it. I think it teaches me to think more big picture, because when you're a solo guitarist just writing, you start focusing on things like technicality, complexity, and I feel like some people have in guitar culture there's this whole like complex where it's like, oh, if it's not like shreddy or like notey, it's not cool and nobody cares.
People aren't like that.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. It can be kind of like a sport sometimes, and I feel like, you know, when I first started out, I was always like, oh, but like this riff isn't like flashy, so, you know, maybe it's not as good as this other riff. But then, like, I think you absolutely shouldn't think like that. Playing in a band taught me how to hold back and like leave a lot more space, because I'm considering like, oh, this is a section for bass to shine. Like I want David, my bass player, to have an open section where he can do some like cool reverby things with his pog, or like his like effects, his fuzz pedal. Like, you know, some of these effects that you have, like, they're not gonna sound good unless you give them space. Like if you're just like sweep picking with the delay, I mean, it's gonna sound like a jumbled mess. If, you know, reverb and stuff, like to really appreciate the decay and like the tail of the reverb, like sometimes you just gotta like hold back. So I think playing in a band, playing with effects taught me to just like hold back and focus more on big picture things, and focus more on songwriting and textures, and, you know, being a unit, being a team.